This video was made to describe how the majority of Czech citizens think about politics and why, so the people around the world would become familiar with it. Now we will talk about the main things that influence people when they are talking about politics or communism. First, let's talk about the stagnation period of socialism in my country. After the death of Gottwald, there was a problem that the Communism Party didn't know the way they should follow. Because the USSR followed Khrushchev's ideas, we did so as well. But we can agree that the Khrushchev's policy wasn't the greatest. Main problems started during the period of Novotny when he became president and general secretary. We stopped periodical party purges. This led to accumulation of careerists. Also, we did not know where to continue with the planet economy. Climax of this period was in the end of the 60s, where the action program was written down with the election of a new first secretary of the UVKSČ named Alexander Dubček. The program itself wasn't good, though you could find some good things, mostly in the cultural life, like lifting censorship. But in the economic part it was heavily regressive. Abortion of central planning, allowance of small businesses, taking loans from the West, and in the political sphere of plans it was not any miracle either. The KSČ was about to allow sharing of power with other political subjects. It's clear that the USSR could not allow this. It's funny when people talk about invasion, trying to convince others that the communism is bad, talking only about censorship and cultural life, but on the other hand, being silent about planned regressive economic and policy reforms. And if they even mention them, they are talking in a way it looks we needed to change from planned economy to free market, because if not, it would have meant total disaster for the Republic. After the 1968 disaster, a non-violent purge happened, when many old communists that supported Dubček got fired and replaced by new ones. At first, it looks great. Traitors are being purged and new loyalists are promoted. But this action brought many careerists and people that were not familiar with communism enough to the Communism Party. All of this and a hostile attitude of the population that were not taught in depth about the true regressivity of the action program and fear of carrying out the new progressive reforms led to stagnation. Communism regime became more vulnerable with majority of incompetent people that were hunting after their personal goals or were too stupid to push country forward in charge. The doors for Velvet Revolution were open. The main turning point of the late 20th century in my country was the Velvet Revolution, which brought the socialistic system on its knees, allowing the return of capitalism. We all can agree that the Soviet regime in the 70s and 80s wasn't going to build up socialism. This and the problems I mentioned above left its marks on Czechoslovakia. Regressivity and stagnation enraged and activated our population, and capitalistic opposition sensed its chance to grab the wheel. With Gorbachev's reform, called perestroika, everything started falling apart. The oil into turmoil was as well that the USSR stopped organizing and helping the local communism government. The biggest disaster struck when the Special Purpose Department, so-called Red Berets, were ordered to suppress commemorative event for the 50th anniversary of the closure of Czech universities by the Nazis held in Prague because students turned this event into peaceful demonstration against socialistic regime. Population was enraged. Opposition formed an organization called the Civil Forum that started carrying out putsch, promising new socialism under their rule. KSČ wasn't capable of solving the situation due to imbeciles and careerists that were in its ranks. They betrayed socialism and voted for Vaclav Havel for the president post, having a majority in the Federal Assembly. In the meantime, the bourgeoisie that lost their property after 1948 started immediately returning back to Czechoslovakia, trying mostly successfully to get it all back with something in debt. Let's lose a few words on Václav Havel. As a son of bourgeois, Havel joined the regressive movement during the 60s, was punished for it and became dissident. He wrote some plays and stories so he could get money from abroad to finance his comfortable private life. There are myths that when communists imprisoned him, they destroyed his health. Actually, they cured him from his alcohol addiction and put his health back together by strict diet. For him, prison was actually a good thing, not like for some others. He appeared as one of the main characters of Charta 77 and Civil Forum. After 1989, he grabbed the wheel of control of opposition backed up by his colleagues that returned from exile and started regressive capitalistic politics. The bourgeois propaganda made him an icon of freedom and democracy, though his democracy was only about praising whatever the USA did and about criticizing any socialistic policy. People after 1989 were happy. You could go abroad, watch news from all sources, get everything you wanted if you had the money. And every advantage from socialism remained it. But this was just the beginning of regressivity. The juicy stuff came soon after. Homeless people started appearing on the streets. Unemployment appeared. Criminal elements and mafias from the outside began to run their criminal activities. Illegal workers from abroad started to rule the labor market with their low work prices. Businesses went bankrupt. People were told the situation will get better. And they believed. And what are thoughts of a common Czech about 1989? People believed that the capitalism was brought back because it's superior, because socialism will always stand against its people. They are missing that the socialism state was actually regressive in its last years, and the new government wanted to continue in a socialism in a reform way. At least that was their campaign and pre-election promises, as you would say now. They exploited the regressive politics of a late socialistic government that brought the state not closer to people but further away, and made critical decisions that led to capitalism. And people were actually thinking that capitalism is a new socialism, a new more liberal state of society where everyone will live happily ever after. When Havel was confronted with a question if he is doing all of this so he could get his property back, he laughed, but he did it forward with many of his friends. Of course, media that have passed to capitalist owners are silent about this and are successfully covering the truth. As I commented about 1968, everyone that is pro 1989 revolution is mainly talking about new freedoms in a culture life, passing all drawbacks that the putsch has brought in the economy and politics sector. So the major part of my nation is misinformed or doesn't know the whole picture. They think that the Velvet Revolution has brought more good than bad. Now let's bring our focus on the post-1989 politics and major events. So let's talk a little bit about Babiš, successful businessman and politician, one of the most wealthy people in my country. head of a party ANO, and now he is a prime minister. He had controversies about drawing subsidies that he didn't have right to, and about conflict of interest when he was the Minister of Finances and also the Prime Minister. Many people hate him for it. Then we have this right populist wing with party SPD. They don't want to purify Czech race or to cleanse world from some race. They want to improve the life of Czechs, but not anyone else. They recorded a spike in their popularity when the migrant crisis struck, enforcing anti-migrant policy, though now their voters are leaving them after realizing that the crisis wasn't that hot for our country. After our misinterpreted history, there is another heavily influential thing, and that the interstruggle that the present government developed. Classic capitalist way how to bring our side from class struggle to something less important and for them harmless. And the citizens of Czech Republic are heavily falling for this. You could see, and in fact you can still see, the drama around our First Minister Babiš and the organization Millions Moments for Democracy, which is democratic like Middle East Czech trying to throw down a premier that will only be exchanged for someone else, doesn't matter. And people are falling for it. Everyone knows that there is a high rate of corruption in a government. But the capitalists, media, marked Babiš, so we will go after him. Government also serves an imaginary diversity of parties you can vote for. Their programs are different in a small details, so they could at least back up this diversity, but their rule after elections is same all the time. They are capitalist parties after all. Czech people have forgotten that there can be a different system that works. Everyone is offering small cuts and small increases there, but nobody is radical in any sense of that word, making it seem that we can't change our government in any drastic way. A third major problem, our school system. The lessons of history or social science are the most boring lessons in a school, even for someone who loves history and philosophy. The style they are let in, hollow facts without any context whatsoever. And every time teachers can spit on socialism or communism, they do it, even outside the history or social science lessons. When teachers interpret, they are talking in such a way, it looks like the world works on idealism principles. Children are educated only to hate communism and to not know the truth about it, or the basic principles of a society and the world, and they are prepared for accepting capitalist propaganda when they grow up. They are also discouraged by the boringness of those categories to learn any more about them. Let's describe moods in the classes. Population of the Czech Republic is very politically passive and on the other hand hostile against any sign of socialism. Front intelligence is a puppet in the hand of bourgeoisie. Humanities are being thrown back in favor of technical fields. Bourgeoisie is the strongest it ever was. Bourgeois values rule Czech society nowadays. Bourgeoisie alone does not see any threats incoming from the working class, mainly for bad organization of unions. The working class is divided. Atomization of society is blooming. The old generation still has a good opinion on socialism, but the majority of the younger generation that has been growing and working during the present government sees a past period, thanks to capitalist propaganda, as a time of regression. Minority, which understands problems of their existence, can't reach major successes because of corrupted and useless unions. Intellectuals are completely sold off to bourgeoisie, and the voices that want to improve quality of life for workers aren't here. Also, the intellectuals that were still loyal to socialism, even after 1999, were moved to the side. About students, we can talk from our experiences. We can tell that the propagation of anti-communist and anti-socialistic opinions is very strong. Socialistic path is being spit on. Humanities are poisoned by nowadays positivist thoughts. Common Czech doesn't know much neither about fundamental principles of work nor politics. Their unconsciousness is controlled by capitalist state monopoly on education and news that are covering truth or relevant information. When there is a need for change, common folk cannot think outside the box which is given them by the capitalist government. We can arrange protests, but only against things that if they were to be changed, it would mean nothing. Almost everyone that has never confronted someone who views things objectively thinks that communism is the same as a fascism, maybe even worse, and that the Stalin was bathing himself in the blood of his victims. You can find some good principles in their heads, but they are mixed with a swarm that neoliberalism poured into them, and they cannot connect those good things with the communism. For most of the people, communism equals Satanism. Majority of my state citizens don't care about higher politics in the slightest. They don't look for some higher principles. They just want to have comfy life, and they don't care much for other people or the world. It's not like it's their natural personas. They are taught to be like this. And of course, things that we are not that poor state improves this thinking because they have a big chance to live at least decent life in a capitalism. It's not like we are some African state. You can find a lot of anti-spirits in our nation, for example anti-immigrant ones. It's not like common Czechs are fascists. It's that they are worried about their comfy lives. Usually they don't see those threats as a product of capitalism, but they think the things that propaganda tells them or their brains with a small circle of information can process and produce. Of course, we have some right-wing activists, but they are small groups. The biggest threat is that the common Czech doesn't know what a real communism is, and he's willingly listening to capitalism propaganda, ignoring most of the arguments you throw at them. I think that the Czech folks need to wake up from their nap and to start connecting flaws of capitalism with capitalism itself. Also, they need to learn the truth about communism. First major event, coupon privatization. Every major citizen obtained coupons with which he could buy stocks of state businesses. Joke were in that the people close to the new government get to buy the promising stocks first. Also, there were and still actually is this controversy connected with Viktor Kožený and his Harvard investment funds. He, backed by influential people in politics, used coupon books of many citizens that were passed to him after promise of 10-time returns, and he tunneled many businesses. Kožený wasn't alone who found investment funds. Others did the same as well, and if they didn't tunnel businesses they had stock in, they have become influential and wealthy persons in nowadays Czech Republic. If you didn't want to invest, you could as well sell the coupons for Instacash. The whole coupon system was then arranged by Prime Minister Václav Klaus. During this period, the dear Prime Minister also said funny joke that we need to tighten our belts and it will be much better soon. Surprise is that the situation hasn't improved, it got even worse. Coupon privatization is as well referred to as one of the most inappropriate ways to privatize state businesses. Only individuals have improved their life thanks to this reform. For example, the wealthy citizen of Czech Republic, Petr Kellner. But for the majority of Czech population, it hasn't brought anything. Many businesses were intentionally bankrupted and were sold to foreign firms. Robbery did not end here. Even though we are one of the most atheistic countries in the world, Catholic and other churches obtained the right for full restitution of their confiscated property by communists, approximately one half in a kind and the other half in cash. In total, it amounts to 75 billion Czech crowns. Even country full of believers like Poland returned only 35 billion crowns. It also looks like the prices of property was overcalculated. This theory is backed up by the Czech Statistical Office. Also, there were some courts held because of church restitutions. And restitutions don't end here. Of course, all nobles and manufacturers obtain their property back. If you see some castles in state hands, it's because a noble sold it or he was cooperating with Nazis during the Second World War, so the castle was taken from him before 1948. I will share one funny story with you. Father of my landlord made a big debt during the First Republic, and this debt laid on his lands. Communists came, confiscated his lands and paid the debt. So he lost his property, but also his debt. And after 1989, his son, current landlord, obtained the land back for free. Funny, right? The second major event after the Velvet Revolution was the fracture of Czechoslovakia in 1992. This was caused by political struggle about the new official name of the Czechoslovakia, also probably by a newly emerged capitalist class that wanted to separate markets to improve their possibilities of unbalanced privatization and of some shady deals. Part of the population wanted to break our federation, but the majority wanted to stay in and even fully unite our states. Our representatives Václav Klaus for the Czech side and Vladimír Mečiar for Slovakian side didn't want us to decide by referendum and ended it all by signing an agreement about ending a federation. Though the majority was for unification, no one asked for public opinion. And now I will demonstrate how high Czech politics work in a cube. After the fall of the government in 1997, due to discovery of illegal financial support of the then main governing party of the ODS, early elections were held. ČSSD were victorious, but they didn't have enough chairs to make a majority government, so they signed an agreement with ODS called the Opposition Agreement, securing their rule. Interesting thing was that the ODS and ČSSD were open rivals before elections, and any possible cooperation was excluded judging by their plans. By signing the agreement, the opposition was denying itself the means to be a strong opposition. For example, they pledged not to vote on the government's distrust, and that's basically it. Because people didn't fight or hate each other, parties stayed cool and just split the power. But because today a lot of citizens directly hate Anu and Babiš, opposition is playing the role of true opposition that always needs to be 180 degrees turned against the government, simulating fake justice in higher places. The Great Recession in 2008 hit Czech Republic too. Small businesses disappeared, prices of everything skyrocketed, and the country just recovered before the hit of crisis 2020. The whole economic situation of Czech Republic is getting worse. Inflation is bigger than the growth of wages, paying for your housing is a nightmare. we can at least say that we live better than the people east of us. Now let's mention major political parties that emerged after 1989 and are now the main actors of nowadays politics of my country. Our right wing is formed of ODS, TOP09 and KDU-ČSL. Those are the parties that are for the classic liberal capitalism, promising good life without much of a social reforms. You could say that those are inferior versions of USA Republicans. More freedom in the businesses, families more than the state and society, Christian values are good. State should have less power. ODS had been until the rise of ANO the strongest party in our country. Now they formed a coalition with TOP09 and KDU-ČSL to rival the ANO. Leftwing is formed of a social democratic ČSSD and a communist KSČM. Lowering taxes for common folks and small and medium bourgeois is their password. Better social security like good healthcare, better schools and more accessible housing are their passwords as well. ČSSD was for a long time the second or first strongest faction, now they are falling behind. Our communist party, the KSČM, has not anything similar with communists in the slightest. They are a band of those who voted for change of a political system and are those who passed the president post to Havel in 1989. Those and the new ones that have come in after the Velvet Revolution are knowingly just puppets of capitalist propaganda, trying to simulate social justice. At the same time, they are here to scare people from fully embracing communism ideas and to control the communist organizations. Our centrists are consist of parties ANO and Pirates. What to say about them? ANO wants a bit from everything and Pirates is a party for modern technologies like virtual authorities and also for some free-mind things like legal weed. Both parties are younger than the other major ones, being founded 20 years after the Velvet Revolution. I think that the Czech folks need to wake up from their nap and to start connecting flaws of capitalism with capitalism itself. Also, they need to learn the truth about communism.